Continuing our tour of the waiting rooms in the depot, we're now in what used to be the men's waiting room. As I explained previously, there were two separate rooms. One of the things that I think is interesting, that not original to the men's room, but is a collage from a ladies' tea room on the Alton Railroad, or Chicago and Alton. It's no dates, we think World War I era probably, but they actually had a separate car on the passenger train they called ladies' tea room. And I have to turn them around, but anyway, there's a Railway Express agency, original big metal sign, which, like I explained in another segment about Railway Express. These are pictures of steam engines, all from Alton and Chicago and Alton Railroad, which may have come through Chatham in the past. Can't prove it or disprove it, but they are at least of a type that would have been through Chatham. And in the center is some passes and stuff from the railroad. These lamps here, haven't found the shade, the glass chimney for that one. Anyway, they were used as emergency lighting in railroad passenger post office cars. Interestingly, their candle, there's a spring underneath that pushes, as the candle burns down, and keeps pushing it up, so they stay at a constant flame, which I found interesting. And they're pretty rare. I've never really seen others. And of course, our guest register book down here. And this protrusion is a brick chimney for another heating stove that was here to heat the building back when. Now, I could break your eardrums, I'm not going to, but on the floor is a bell off of a steam engine, and it's very, very loud. Kids love it. Little kids hate it because it's too loud for their ears. Older kids love to ring it. But to give you a perspective, this large bell is actually from this steam locomotive. It's that bell right there. To give you an idea of the size of those engines. And above it is something interesting. Back in 2002, we had a grand opening and dedication of the depot here in Chatham, the museum. And Governor Ryan at the time, I'm sure you remember him, another one of our famous in-prison governors. Anyway, he proclaimed that day in September 9th of 2002 as Chatham Railroad Museum Day in the state of Illinois, which was kind of special. And we picked 2002 as a good date. The first train came through Chatham in 1852. The depot was built in 1902, and we dedicated the museum in 2002. It's an interesting sequence. This bright red object is a track drill. The railroad track came in sections and they were bolted together. And as you can see by turning the crank down there, that drill actually will turn and drill a hole for the bolt to bolt the tracks together. And moving along, there's more pictures of Illinois Central trains. There's in Chicago, a bunch of them lined up. Picture of Gilman, Illinois, just a variety of different ones. On the wall here is a collage of timetables back from 40s, 50s, when almost all railroads ran passenger trains. It's just a collage of railroads. Most of them would come through Illinois, central Illinois, like the Illinois Terminal, Alton, Chicago and Alton, GM&O, Wabash, etc. Now over on in this corner, a couple of things I think are quite interesting. First is a flyer for the Illinois State Fair, September 13th to 20th in Springfield in 1924. The Chicago and Alton had a timetable of trains that would take you directly to the fairgrounds. Interestingly, a round trip from Chatham in 1924 was 70 cents to go to the State Fair, which sounds very cheap, but back then that was almost a day's wages for some people. And right below it, this rather odd-looking gadget, if you pull the handle down, is a wash basin. On some of those railroad passenger or post office cars, they had a little tiny washroom with a toilet, and then this folded up to give them room. But turn the water on, wash your hands, and then when you raise it up, the water drained into this large funnel and through a pipe out, and when I say out onto the ground under the car. Moving over here a little bit, interesting picture here is an actual GM&O passenger train coming through the depot in Chatham. It's been about 1970, I believe it was. Of course, that's long gone now, but that is, it was years ago in Chatham. Now, moving around, we've got a couple of items just of interest on the walls there. And you realize, of course, in this room, what we just walked past are modern day restrooms. When the building was original, there were no indoor restrooms. They had an outhouse. On the wall here, it's kind of narrow space, hard to get a picture, but it's a large floor tile display that was on the floor of the GM&O Alton Depot, which is currently Amtrak Depot in Springfield. Some of the pieces, it was glued to the wall, some of the pieces fell off. We have them saved in a box, we're trying, some of them are chipped and bent, trying to figure out how to reassemble it. But there is a picture we have here of it as it was in the depot in Springfield on the floor. It was actually, went out to the points of the compass. And then immediately to the right of that is a picture of a GM&O passenger train at the station in Springfield. And I think that pretty well covers the two waiting rooms we have in our 1902 era museum here in Chatham.